Anyone who has watched the Sacramento Kings play consistently over the last 20 years knows that tonight's game against the Charlotte Hornets was one of the more predictable trap games that we have ever seen. The Hornets come into tonight's game on an 11-game losing streak without LaMelo Ball. Oh yeah, the Kings are going to find a way to lose this game, and lo and behold, they did. 111 to 104, the final score on a night where there was a heated exchange between Mike Brown and Malik Monk on the Kings bench. We'll discuss it all right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News, and coming here into the Golden One Center, it's a conversation that I've had internally and externally with myself. Yes, being a podcast host, talking to a camera, I tend to talk to myself from time to time. And it's like, yeah, the Kings are taking on a Hornets team. Yeah, we've seen the Kings lose games like this so many times over the last couple of decades, but surely, right, the Kings wouldn't lose to the Hornets in Sacramento for the second straight season. Surely the Kings wouldn't lose to the Hornets with LaMelo Ball being out. They just came off of one of their best and most complete performances of the season, winning in Memphis on New Year's Eve. They'll start 2024 on the right foot in front of 18,000 fans here in the Golden One Center. Truly, there's nothing to worry about. Well, maybe that was just me trying to convince myself before the game actually started, because lo and behold, sometimes the Kings can't get rid of that Kings in the back of their mind. That Kings team made its appearance tonight in their 111 to 104 loss to the Hornets in, yes, the most obvious trap game of all time. Or maybe up there. I mean, over the course of the last 20 years, they've just been these games where the Kings were taking a shorthanded opponent, or everything just seemed to be in Sacramento's favor, and yet they would lose. Like so many Kings fans, I know you're not shocked tonight by this. And you might be saying, Matt, you seem too chipper and seem too happy for the Kings losing this game, and it was a dreadful loss. Don't get me wrong, I'm very frustrated by a lot of things from tonight's game, and we'll get into it. But I was more laughing while the collapse was happening in front of us in the fourth quarter, and it was kind of a laughing through the pain. I was more laughing than I was like angry and frustrated, especially compared to I was pissed off during the Portland game, during that 3-game road trip, right, when the Kings got their asses kicked by the Trailblazers in Portland. I was pissed off during that game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there's certainly things about tonight's loss that I could be pissed off about. But again, my reaction was just like, oh my God, it's happening again. Even with the Kings being a established, or so we think, playoff team, it's happening again. The Kings are going to somehow lose to the Charlotte Hornets here in Sacramento again, except this time it's going to be even worse. Yeah, I guess all you can do is laugh. The Hornets got 34 points out of Terry Rozier. That man loves to play the Sacramento Kings. He cooked Sacramento tonight. And Mr. Bridges, the one Bridges player that we don't like, for reasons you can look up later if you're not aware, he had 27 points. But really, it doesn't matter what the Charlotte Hornets did. Tonight is all about what the Sacramento Kings did to themselves. Here's the number of the night. Here's the stat of the night for you. 21 turnovers for the Sacramento Kings. 21 turnovers tonight, and Mike Brown said after the game that he thinks all of them were unforced. The Kings were just loose and lazy and lackadaisical with the basketball. 21 turnovers tonight. Domantas Sabonis had a bad triple-double with 23 points, 18 rebounds. We love those numbers. 11 turnovers from the Kings' big man tonight. I don't care who you are, whether you're the best player on the team, at the end of the bench, it doesn't matter. If you turn the ball over 11 times, something is really, really wrong. Domas had a really poor night taking care of the basketball, handling the basketball, making the wrong decisions, but he was not alone. Now, no other king came close to 11 turnovers. De'Aaron Fox had 3 turnovers, including the turnover that essentially lost the game for the Kings. The Hornets took a lead on, I think it was a P.J. Washington bucket to take a 1-point lead with like 40 or so seconds left or something like that. And De'Aaron's dribbling the ball up the floor. I think just dribbles the ball off of his foot. Again, to Mike Brown's point, just another unforced turnover, which resulted in a Hornets layup to go up by 3. And at that point, this game pretty much felt like it was over, even though the Kings had plenty of time to answer. They never really did. But that means De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis combined for 14 of your 21 turnovers. 2/3 of your turnovers came from your 2 stars. That's inexcusable, right? And what's crazy is, like, the Kings dominated in so many areas of this game statistically. They dominated in second chance points. I think the Hornets only had like 2 second chance points to Sacramento's like 18 or something like that. The Kings won the fast break points battle. They destroyed Charlotte on the glass, had a double-digit advantage in rebounds. And in terms of points in the paint, both teams were tied, I think, at 48 in points in the paint. So in the stats that typically point to a victory, the Kings pretty much won all of those stats. Basically what this tells you is the Sacramento Kings played so poorly and did such a terrible job taking care of the basketball that even though they won all those essential stats to help you win a game, they could not pull away. The Kings led for like 90% of this game, and at no point did it feel like the Kings were playing good basketball. They had a stretch or two where De'Aaron would finally hit a 3, or Monk hit a couple of 3s, or the Kings got a couple of stops and got out in transition. Like, there were a couple stretches where I was like, oh, cool, the Kings are maybe going to start to finally wake the hell up and build a lead against a really bad shorthanded Charlotte Hornets team, rather. Yeah, that never happened. Like, the Kings, they're lucky they were playing the Charlotte Hornets tonight. And I'm saying that in a loss, because the Kings play this way tomorrow night against the Orlando Magic. The Kings play this way against almost any other team in the league, maybe not the Detroit Pistons. They're losing this game by 20-plus points. Like, Sacramento was just so bad tonight. It was ugly basketball, a terrible game to watch, and I feel bad for the 18,000 people who paid to watch tonight's game. It was just not a fun basketball game. And whether you want to say the Kings are once again playing to the level of their opponents here with Charlotte coming into town, whether you want to take the Mike Brown school of thought and just say, like, this Kings team was not prepared, was not ready to go. Yeah, Mike said that after the game. He said he did not do a good job getting his team ready for tonight's game. Whether it was the Kings just being too loose and too kind of carefree coming into a game that, yeah, they absolutely should win, but clearly they acted like it coming into tonight's game and never even looked remotely like themselves, especially offensively. I don't know what excuse or what explanation you want to put forward. This Kings performance tonight was just abysmal, right? And they still should have won this game, which is crazy. Speaking of Mike Brown, he had some questionable rotation decisions tonight. One of them that we were keeping close track of was Malik Monk only playing 5 minutes in the first half. Malik ended up playing 20 minutes in tonight's game. He finished with 6 points, 2 of 7 shooting from the field, 2 assists. But in those 20 minutes, he was a minus 21. Now, I'm not usually a fan of the plus-minus stat, even when you use it on as a positive. It's a kind of a team number that's assigned positively or negatively to one guy. But sometimes it reflects how good a team is playing and how poorly a team is playing when a player is on the floor. And the fact that Malik Monk was a minus 21 tonight, the next closest King was Keegan Murray at a minus 8. So he was by far the worst. When Malik Monk was in the game, Sacramento was playing their worst basketball tonight, or at least Charlotte made their biggest runs. Malik's 5 minutes in the first half, he was a minus 11 in those 5 minutes. So Malik came into the game, made some boneheaded decisions, made some big mistakes on the defensive end of the floor, and was put on timeout immediately. Was brought to the bench, did not play for the rest of the half. and then ended up playing a good portion of the second half after an altercation with Mike Brown. I caught it on camera. Malik shoots and hits his second three, and he turns towards the Kings bench and the Kings coaching staff and Mike Brown, and he appears to say something. Now, Malik is a vocal guy. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's jawed at his teammates before. He's also said stuff at them as they're hyping him up. So I didn't think too much of it. It caught my eye and I posted it to social, but I didn't think too much of it. At that point, I stopped paying attention. Thankfully, Sean Cunningham from Fox 40, he continued to pay attention and he rolled on, and you can go to Sean's Twitter right now, and I highly encourage you to do so to watch this clip. During a timeout, Malik goes to the bench and sits down all frustrated. Mike comes right up to him and they have a very, very vocal and heated exchange. No worries about anything coming to blows or anything like that, but the two guys are going back and forth at one another. They are. And this is not the first time that this has happened between these two players. They go back and forth. Mike walks away. Now, in the end, they finish the timeout. Mike draws up something on the clipboard with all 5 players sitting down watching, including Malik. Afterwards, Malik slaps Mike on the back, gets back into the game, and ended up playing a vast majority of the remainder of the game. So, how should we respond to this? Some people are going to take Malik Monk's side and go, Mike, why the hell did Malik only play 5 minutes in the first half? I know he was part of the reason why the Kings were struggling with that second unit when they first took the floor, but Kevin Huerter and Davion Mitchell playing more than Malik Monk and having a longer leash than Malik Monk, explain that to me. And I'm not really the biggest fan, or truthfully, I'm not a fan at all of, unless one of them is hurt, knock on wood, I'm not a fan at all of not having De'Aaron Fox or Malik Monk in the game. No disrespect to Davion Mitchell or Keon Ellis or anybody else or Domantas Sabonis trying to run the offense. I feel like Fox or Monk have to be on the floor at all times. They are the playmakers on this team. They make Sacramento's offense go. And there were a number of stretches, especially in that first half, where neither of them were in the game. I did not like that. So on that side, in that sense, I can take Malik's side a little bit and go, Mike, I know he didn't play well in that first stretch, but I mean, let's get over this and let's move on. If you're going to have such a long leash for Harrison Barnes, who once again did nothing tonight, Kevin Huerter, who did diddly squat off the bench as well, then I mean, you got to have a longer leash for Malik Monk. Malik was definitely in the doghouse in that first half. On the other hand, Malik yelling at his coach or whatever, I don't have any issue with anything that Malik did, and I really don't have any issue with Mike John at him, or the two going back and forth. Heated moments are good because these guys are competitive. They both want to win in their own way. And you're going to hear a clip from Mike in a second talking about the heat of the moment and how this is not going to be the last time that these two go at each other. And they've gone at each other before. I like the fire. I do. I'm okay with the fire. How many times this season, especially recently after the blowout loss in Portland, have I said, somebody wake someone the hell up? I would like to see someone on the sidelines clearly pissed off that something's going wrong. Well, Malik was pissed, Mike was pissed, and they were going at it. So I like that fire because I know both of them are on the same side. There's no rift between these two guys. They don't dislike each other. They both want to win. They both have, obviously, different approaches to how tonight should have gone. Malik was not happy for being benched in that first half. Mike was not happy with how Malik played in that 5-minute stretch in the first half. And ultimately, the Kings lost a very winnable game to the Charlotte Hornets. I'm okay with the fire. Here's Mike Brown's explanation of what happened, or at least him discussing that altercation with Malik on the sideline.
Yeah, no, it's heat of the moment. Malik and I think everybody has seen it, but Malik and I have gotten into exchanges before. This is not the first time, and I bet a lot of money it won't be the last time. So that's not a big deal. You're right. The first 5 out there, I thought they initially did a good job, and then, once we made subs, we were throwing underhand passes, and it was in my opinion, probably one of the laziest, loosest games that we've had where we decided to play that way, and it gave them confidence. And anytime you give an NBA team confidence, especially with, they struggled scoring. They're missing a handful of guys, but they're NBA players. And it's an NBA team. And Cliff does a nice job with that group. He continues to get them to try to play hard. But when you give a team confidence like we gave them tonight, things like that can turn into a loss.
Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the #1 largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And the best part, it's just you versus the PrizePicks projected numbers. You're not taking on anybody else, no humans, no bots, no sharks and pro gamblers out there. It's just you versus the numbers. You pick 2 to 6 players, and whether they're going to score more or less or put up more or less points or assists or rebounds or a combination of all three, blocks, turnovers, whatever it may be, there's so many different ways for you to play PrizePicks. And of the many things that's great about PrizePicks is they have what's called a reboot policy. So if one of your players gets injured, for whether like a football or basketball player or whatever, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second half, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Plus, PrizePicks this season has been just so much fun, really an extra level of stress with watching Kings basketball, but certainly an extra level of fun as well. It's really simple to play. You can make your selections in 60 seconds or less, and when you win, you can make quick withdrawals and get your money quickly. PrizePicks is not going to make it tough for you to get that money that you've earned into your bank account or into your pocket. They offer also weekly promotions and things that you can take advantage of. They encourage you to keep playing and give you more than your fair share of opportunities to win money and ultimately have fun. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. So you deposit $100, use that code, you get another $100 on top of that. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by my good friends over at Sackyard Community Tap House. Maybe this is another good night if you weren't here in the Golden One Center watching tonight's game. Certainly, you could have had a more affordable beer than here inside the Golden One Center and drinking away some of your sorrows as the Sacramento Kings blew this obvious trap game. Sackyard Community Tap House is a wonderful place to watch Kings basketball. It's a wonderful place to just hang out, period, whether you're hanging out with friends or family. And yes, I use that family word intentionally because they want you to bring your kids. They want you to come and have a good time. They have an outdoor patio that's perfect year-round during the winter. They have fire pits for you to keep warm. During the summer, they have misters. They also have a lawn area with all sorts of lawn games and stuff so your kids can have a good time. It's not one of those rowdy club bar scenes. It's a community house. It's a community place to come together, have fun. They have parties there all the time. And in 2024, keep an eye out for more Locked On Kings events, maybe a live podcast there, certainly another watch party. There's going to be more Locked On Kings events for you to check out at Sackyard with their amazing draft beers on tap, plus their amazing local wines for you to try, plus they have food trucks coming there all the time. Sackyard is your home for the Locked On Kings listener. All right, we're going to play a little game here concerning, or rather, let's call it this, concern versus panic, right? There's a fine line between that. Things to be concerned about and things that are just panicking, right? I don't think the Kings are in a position at all to where fans should be panicking. But there are certainly things that the fans should and are concerned about. So let's try and sift our way through that. I have a couple topics here, some that I thought of myself, some that I'm taking directly from social media conversation that I saw tonight about the Kings. Number one, the Sacramento Kings suck at free throws. That's not panicking. That's a legit concern. This Kings team is dreadful at the free throw line. Tonight, 10 of 17. 58% from the free throw line. They're not even making it to the line as much as we would like them to, but it doesn't matter because when they're getting to the line, they're not hitting their free throws. They came into tonight's game shooting 73% from the free throw line as a team. Yeah, that number has probably gone down. That's, I think, tied with the Toronto Raptors for last in the NBA in free throw percentage. Now, I have been inside Kings practices. I see what the Kings do to end practices consistently. They have different guys shoot free throws. They have to hit like 4 or 6 free throws in a row. 2 guys hit 2, then the next guy comes up and hits 2, then the next guy comes up and gets 2. If at any point someone misses, the entire team runs to the other end of the court and back and they do it all over again. So they work on high-pressure free throws that obviously have a punishment aspect to it. But it's not freaking working. I don't know if these guys just enjoy running back and forth. I don't know if you need to start having them run back and forth, take a timeout, and make them sprint during an actual game, because this team, top to bottom, sucks at free throw shooting. I asked Mike Brown about that after the game. I'm not going to play that clip for you here. You can listen to Mike's response to that on my Twitter if you want, at MattGeorgeSack. But I'll kind of sum it up for you. He basically said, like, I don't know if we need to be shooting more free throws, if we need to take more time during practice to, like, just pause and have someone hit 2 free throws in a row. And he said it's perplexing that a team with this many good shooters is shooting this poorly from the free throw line. Mike is confused about it. And what can he do? Like, that's what I asked him is, Mike, like, how do you coach that to be better? These guys are working on their free throws individually and in practice all the time. You can't force them to make shots. They're professional basketball players. They should be making those shots more often than not. And I'm not saying that had the Kings, of course, they hit 7 more free throws, they, tie this game? Yeah. So I'm not saying that was the difference between them winning or losing tonight. It was the turnovers more than anything. But there have been way too many games this season where free throw shooting has made a big difference in the Kings either winning or losing, or games that they've won but shot their free throws poorly. It could have been a lot more comfortable of a win than it has been. That is something this Kings team desperately has to improve on. So it's not panic to say the Kings suck at free throws. It's a concern. It's a legit concern. How about this? This one's going to get a lot of conversation, so prepare to share your thoughts in the YouTube comment section if you're watching. If you want to share your thoughts on Twitter or hit me up on email, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Feel free to do that as well. The Kings have reached their ceiling with Harrison Barnes and with Kevin Huerter. Barnes tonight, 3 points, 1 of 2 shooting from the field, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 2 steals in 24 minutes. In 24 minutes, Barnes took 2 shots and only 1 rebound and 1 assist. Once again, Harrison Barnes did nothing, or next to nothing. Kevin Huerter, coming off the bench now. He's lost his starting job to Chris Duarte, and I don't know if he's ever going to get it back. 4 points tonight. 1 of 4 shooting from the field. 0 of 2 from three-point range, 2 rebounds. If Kevin Huerter's not hitting three-pointers, he's not giving you much, unfortunately. Have the Kings reached their ceiling with these 2 guys? I know a lot of people are clamoring for one or both to be traded. Hell, the Kings might consider using both to make a big swing potentially. Pascal Siakam, Kyle Kuzma, I don't know. Insert name here. I still don't think it's going to happen, but maybe the Kings will be looking to do it. But I don't think I'm at the point where I'm going to say, yeah, the Kings have gotten to as good as they're going to get with both those guys on the roster, but I'll say this. Their consistent struggles, plus some of the consistent issues with this Sacramento Kings team as a whole, it's not their fault, but they fall hand in hand, right? I do think the Kings can be better with those 2 players here in Sacramento, but to get to where they want to get, which is winning a championship, Mike Brown told me before the game started that his New Year's resolution for the team this year was to win a championship. And then they lost to the Charlotte Hornets. I don't think that New Year's resolution is coming true with Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter on your roster. Maybe one of the 2, but we're pretty close, I think, to the ceiling with both of those guys. How about this one? This one's a little controversial. Keegan Murray isn't ready for the 3rd star role. He's had some awesome performances. The Kings have had great nights out of their big 3 where they've gotten 20 points out of each of them. That's happened every once in a while. Of course, Keegan Murray had that amazing game where he went for, 47 and caught fire here inside the Golden One Center. Like, we know Keegan can be a flamethrower, but Keegan also sometimes disappears. Like, Keegan only took 2 free throws tonight. He's only taken 2 free throws over the last 4 games. He's only gotten to the free throw line 1 time in 4 games. Now, I don't know if that's a Kings scheme thing or if he's just too much time on the perimeter or what. But for someone who the Kings have been hoping can turn into that 3rd scoring option, Keegan sometimes is just not aggressive enough. Do I think Keegan can't be the 3rd leading scorer or the 3rd star? No. I think that would be panic. But maybe it's a legit concern that in his 2nd year, he's just not ready for that. Maybe that's why Malik has kind of been that more than Keegan has to this point so far this season. I don't know if that's sustainable, but that's kind of where the Kings are at. I think that's somewhat of a legit concern. Finally, this one might interest some people. The Kings are closer to frauds than they are to being elite. Or should I say, they're closer to being frauds than they are to being great. Boy, that's a tough one to answer. Because I do think this Kings team still has a long way to go to get to great consistently. Roster-wise, maybe they're a piece or two away. But, and I mean, De'Aaron's playing like a star and should be in the MVP conversation more. Domantas Sabonis is really good. Bright future with Keegan Murray. Hopefully the Kings can re-sign Malik Monk. Like all the reasons that I've laid out many times here on Locked On Kings to why I believe this Kings team can and will eventually be great. But losses like this, the fact that they've been blown out 7 or 8 times this season, even though they have a winning record, I don't think they're close to being frauds at all. And fraud is such a harsh term. But if the Kings are a teeter-totter and over here is fraud and over here is being great, I think we're almost dead in the middle where it's balancing, and some nights it tilts slightly one way and some nights it tilts slightly the other. Tonight it's certainly tilting more towards fraud than it is towards great. But I think it's panic to call this team frauds. I think it's way, way, way too early to call them great. So I'm going to kind of fence sit on this one and sit right in the middle. But I'm more leaning towards them being great than them being frauds. And I think that's more the optimistic side of me coming out. But share your thoughts on those, and you can even present some yourselves. A legit concern or panic, you let me know. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is winding down. Can you believe it? It's almost NFL playoff time. But you can get in on the action right now on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. There's truly no better time than right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 bonus bets whether you win or lose. So deposit $5. Bet it on whatever. Win or lose, here's $150 more for you to bet and have fun on things like live same game parlays. You can find bets in their new Explore tab to help you find just fun and different and new ways to play. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays out there. And of course more. There's so many different fun and exciting ways for you to play on FanDuel.com. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an absolute layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So a couple things here before we wrap up. I want to play for you this clip, a question that I asked De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron has spoken before about bad losses, like you have to have a short-term memory. Even after wins, you have to have a short-term memory, right? The season is so long and the games come at you so fast that you can't linger on anything, right? You just kind of have to move on. I asked De'Aaron if that's what he's doing tonight. His response to this question, I understand completely. I'm wondering if Kings fans are not going to like it or not. I'll explain a little bit more after you hear it. Darren, you've talked before about you have to have a short-term memory and over the course of an 82-game season. Is this one of those that you wake up tomorrow and forget about, or do you want a game like this to maybe sting a little bit more to learn from it?
I mean, it's funny because I was telling them, like, obviously I don't think we've had one of those bad just stretches of games, but at the end of the day, you soak in a loss like this, and it can pile on to 6 losses in a row. So for me personally, when I walk out this building, I'm not thinking about this game again. So I think it's to each their own on a subject like that. But for me personally, once I walk out of here, I mean, we have another game tomorrow. We're playing against a good Orlando team. So what am I thinking about this game for?
A lot of what De'Aaron Fox said there, I have absolutely no issue with. I mean, he's actually played multiple 82-game seasons plus a playoff series now, so he knows what it takes to get through the day-to-day grind of the NBA, and we don't. So in some sense, we kind of just have to trust the King star with that. But I do understand Kings fans that are going, nah, I want you to be more pissed off. I want this to linger with you. I want this to sting. Like De'Aaron said, hey, as soon as I leave the Golden One Center, this game's over and done with. Why would I think about it? Why would I worry about it? We got the Orlando Magic here tomorrow. So I got to just move on from it. I get that. And I think that's a healthy way of handling stuff like this. And again, De'Aaron Fox knows better than I. But if I were to nitpick at anything, I would say I want tonight's loss, a game where the Kings absolutely should have won. You can't be losing games like this on your home floor, especially against this bad and shorthanded team. And more importantly, how the Kings played, how poorly they played, turning the ball over 21 times. I want this to sting. I want this to piss the Kings off a little bit. So much so that they take the floor tomorrow and they look completely different and all this is cleaned up. Time will tell with that. But do you understand and appreciate Fox's response and how he handles losses like this? Or would you want him to be a little more pissed off? You let me know at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Like I mentioned, tomorrow, the Orlando Magic are in town. Second night of a back-to-back. Oh, boy, that's gone so well for the Sacramento Kings this season, right? They have yet to win on the second night of a back-to-back. However, tonight's loss was the first time this season the Kings have lost on the first night of a back-to-back. The Orlando Magic played in San Francisco. They took on the Golden State Warriors tonight. So the Magic, too, will be on the second night of a back-to-back. So if we want to use the Sacramento Kings, nothing makes sense, so everything makes sense, reverse psychology model. The Kings lose a winnable game on the first night of a back-to-back against the Charlotte Hornets. Maybe that's what needed to happen for the Kings to finally win on the second night of a back-to-back. Who knows? Maybe this is what needed to happen. Maybe the Kings will randomly finally win the second night of a back-to-back, certainly beating the Orlando Magic, even though they're better this season. The Magic are a very beatable team, a team that the Kings should be beating, especially here on their home floor. So maybe tonight needed to happen for the Kings to figure out their second night of a back-to-back problem and finally win on the second night of a back-to-back. As much as I say that tongue-in-cheek and as a joke, it could be true, and if it is true, then I need the Kings to learn how to respond in ways that don't involve embarrassing losses or getting their ass kicked the night before, and I know we've talked about that before. Regardless, hopefully the Kings can find a way to end that second night of a back-to-back curse, get back on track with a win against the Orlando Magic, because they have a 4-game homestand here. Now 3 games left of this 4-game homestand, all in 1 week, and then they go on a 5-game road trip, come back for a couple of games, and then they go on like a 7 or 8-game road trip. So the Kings need to take care of business at home here this month and heading into February, because those long road trips are never easy, even for a Kings team that has had success on the road going back to last season. So Kings got to figure stuff out and handle their business. Hopefully they will tomorrow against the Magic. No matter what, I will have another Locked On Kings post-game pod for you here from the Golden One Center, so I hope you will continue to join me for those episodes. If you're coming to tomorrow night's game, hit me up, reach out to me. I'm usually at the top of section 105, which is the media area. I'm typically there about 10 minutes before the game starts, after I've finished up with pregame duties and stuff downstairs. So come by, say hi, hit me up on social media. My DMs are open if you want to come by and we can organize a meeting. Would love to see you, would love to chat with you, and wish you Happy New Year, and thank you in person for your support here at the Locked On Kings podcast. I truly don't take it for granted. Thank you so much. Can't wait to have you join me on tomorrow night's episode. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.